Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Grid Vision, the 2024 Major Series Pacific Top Split at the Formula Ford Festival. Here we are at beautiful Brands Hatch. I'm Joe LaCastro, joined in the booth today by Ian Fisher and in the truck by Austin Derbyshire. Ian, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We've been watching a little bit of practice so far, just about to go into qualifying. I won't spoil too much of the fun, but some interesting conditions out here today that these drivers are going to have to deal with, to say the least.
Interesting is probably the understatement. It's that British understatement sneaking in. As you can see, overcast right now. We've got an 80% chance of rain in everything we're doing tonight. So you're right. It's going to be a wet one, flat out. It's going to be a situation where these guys are. I hope they practiced, and we're going to find out quick. So
yeah,
this is
one of the places we were talking about before we got started was, and we'll see it during qualifying, is Paddock Hill is going to be a nightmare this evening for these drivers when they're coming down there. We were talking about that's right where your car is compressing at the bottom of Paddock Hill. And there's a huge puddle right there that all these drivers are going to have to somehow find a way to navigate through, especially when we get started with the heat races.
Absolutely. That the way that a track can change in the rain is going to get highlighted as we watch a few of the drivers who are getting ready to go around tonight. Why don't we cover a few of the keys to the race here at Brands Hatch? Can you take us through those?
Yeah, my first key to the race tonight, Joe, is going to be, especially with the conditions that we see and how tight and technical this Brands Hatch Indy circuit is you want to qualify up front and you want to be a good spot for your heat races. We're seeing other drivers, not right now on your screen, but just watching out the window of our virtual broadcast booth. And even this driver here coming down to the corner, you see how sideways you get. So it's going to be important to get up front early in these heat races and try to get yourself in a good spot. But you also want to remember that you want to be careful out here. You want to take your time. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you ruin your whole entire night in heat number one or even in qualifying here, as we see some of these drivers really struggling to put down lap times. But at the same time, it is okay. It's a heat race. Not only do we have, I believe, 3 heat races today, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but we also have 2 last chance qualifiers. So even if you're not making it through a heat race, you want to put yourself in a good position for that LCQ so you can make it through at the end of the evening.
I think you're onto something. We'll confirm those race details, but we do have several heats to get through, a few last chances, and then a final feature. So things are going to be really interesting here with a number of heats and having to run that razor's edge you just mentioned of having to get out there early, get a good position, and also driving carefully. That's going to end up really challenging anyone who hasn't been paying attention to how iRacing changes when rain is officially in the equation.
Not only that, but we haven't really touched on the car that we're going to be racing this evening, which is the Formula Ford. We're already seeing it all the way through our qualifying times. You see our leader right now, Justin Morton, with the fastest lap of 54.5 right now. But look at how close these lap times are as you move down first through 10th. Don't let it deceive you there. We're seeing further back in the field now, 31st. You're seeing some of those drivers that are farther down the lap times. But if you see the whole timer, like there, look at that. That's very close, like first down through 20th. So not only is it going to be dealing with tough conditions, you're going to have cars on pretty much either side of you all night long.
Yeah, and these guys are right now, while they're qualifying, they're not getting a real taste of that traffic that they're going to have to be dealing with. The Indy configuration here at Brands Hatch, a little bit shorter than its Grand Prix configuration. It's a track that looks like it's going to take our boys around about a minute to get around, a little bit less. The pace is somewhere around 54 seconds right now at some of the best. This is in the wet, of course. So with that pace at about 15 minutes, 12 laps per race, it's going to be something where if the driver hasn't been practicing and does not understand what race pace is like in the rain, they're going to be pushing for faster times and potentially putting themselves in a really bad position. Let's look and see who else is out on the road here, as we got a few more people qualifying. Guys on right now. Who is that? Get their name up on screen. Oh, I got to start memorizing the colors and numbers here. This is a team I don't usually call. This is Dallas Pataska. Going around now to set sometimes. Last lap was a 55.2. That puts Dallas around 7th place in qualifying. As you can see, yeah, some cars just getting sideways on these turns where the wet comes into play. Even open-wheeled cars like this, you can control that slide, but oh man, it just terrifies me every time I see it.
Yeah, and it is kind of interesting, especially these open wheel cars. The Skip Barber comes to mind. A certain amount of slip angle really isn't a bad thing, especially with these tires. You do want a little bit of heat on them. That's how they operate a little bit more efficiently as we go on board here with Dallas Pataska. This is something as he comes down this front straightaway that I'm really interested to see when we go into our races, Joe, is the runs that these drivers are going to get going down this front straightaway, and a lot of the draft that they're going to be able to pick up. And these open wheel cars, especially where you don't have all the horsepower in the world, those aerodynamic effects are going to be a big deal. Another place to watch is where Dallas is going around right now. We see a lot of cars sliding here. Not only is that a heavy braking zone, but you're going uphill and cresting a hill as you go around that corner. So it's taking all the weight off of your car while you're trying to brake the car and rotate it in the rain. So it's a pretty challenging set of corners to go through to start a racetrack.
And I admit I have relatively limited experience in the Formula Ford. These cars don't appear to have a lot of downforce on them. So there's not really much that's helping you stay on the track aside from your braking technique. And that's just compounding this this weather situation. We're gonna see some interesting pirouettes, I think, as the evening goes on and people are trying to push themselves to make passes and hold off other drivers, drive defensively. It's going to be an interesting night.
And I'm just going to go ahead and bury the lead on this one right now. We've got a little bit of downtime. I don't know if you noticed in there, I accidentally joined the session as a driver. So I'm sitting in the timing tower right now. So I do apologize to the organizers of the event and everybody watching along at home that you'll see my name sitting there. And I'm just going to admit to that one right now because that's pretty much one of the commentator goofball moments right there. So I apologize for that, everybody, just to get that one out of the way now while we got a little bit of downtime.
It's okay. You can admit that you've got the aspirations here. This is a safe space. We know you want to be down there on the track in the rain, just duking it out with these guys, right?
Hey, I will say I do have familiarity with this course from a rallycross perspective. This is also one of the courses you'll use a lot with a lot of the virtual driving schools. So one I'm at least somewhat familiar with. I wouldn't say that I'd be fast out here, but I could probably at least hold my own a little bit. I would say that.
Okay. Well, if I had some of your numbers up in front of me, we could compare them a little bit. That might be kind of fun.
Don't do that.
we don't want to get too into the weeds on that. We don't want to get too close to the comparison. These are going to be some of the best drivers we've seen. Some of the best drivers I've probably seen in the Formula Ford I'm going to get to see tonight. And that's exciting because you always get a great race out of the Majors Racing League. And this is no different here. As we get set up for the first race, it looks like the session is kicking into gear. Heat 1. 12 laps coming up here. 6 of these drivers will move on to the feature. In the grid, we've got Justin Morton, Ross Banfield. After that, we've got Christian Challoner, Trevor Vavrosky, followed by Brian McGreevy, Gavin Barber, Dallas Pataska, followed by Seb Tixier, I want to call it that, Ashley Cucci, followed by Travis Warling, and Brenton Foster, followed by Daniel Stevens. You want to take it from there?
Yeah, we've got Stephen Verwey on the outside with Brian Barnes on the inside. They'll be followed up by Shane Vicari and Adam Johnson here. It's going to be Joseph Holman and Sebastian Jackson. And something I'm noticing as we're going down this grid, a lot of international flair to all of our drivers. Wayne Hutcherson, Stuart Earl there, Bryce Roberts, Kevin Santana going even faster for me now, just trying to make it so I can list them off as fast as I possibly can because we're about to get going here.
It's all right. The green flag is off. A standing start, and we are away here on Grid Vision. Up in the first place position right now, though, with what an amazing start. Justin Morton jumping off the line in that Crayola car. He's up front, holding on to that front position. Behind him, that's Trevor Vavrosky, Travis Warling in third.
looks like one driver possibly off track there. Not quite sure who that is, but towards the back of the pack, looks like everybody's going to be able to keep it together. And this is kind of interesting. If you're one of these drivers that you're racing in this first heat, you don't really have the luxury of kind of watching some of these heats develop and then seeing what's happening here. You just kind of go out and figure it out on your own. And it looks like, at least for right now, everybody is going to get through this first lap unscathed, but they still got 12 more to go. Kind of singling out 2x2 now for the rest of the field. Morton's still in the lead. Oh,
And they're too wide. Out to the outside right now goes, I believe that's Shane Vickery. Yes.
I believe it was.
Shane Vickery is outside. He's been able to recover, but that back right is destroyed.
Yeah, hanging on by a thread right now. If he another driver off there too. I believe that was maybe
Bryce Roberts.
But it looks like I was going to say Roberts is the one at the bottom of the timing tower right now, so that was going to be my guess. But two drivers having problems right after I said everybody getting through the lap cleanly. So it didn't mean to jinx everybody like that, but yeah, real tough time there to get back going. We'll see what happened. I think I saw a little bit of contact there, Joe, but it all happened very quickly.
It did. Roberts was one of the drivers. He was actually the driver who went wide earlier, so potentially trying to get out of something there. It looks like he got caught up again, though, once he got back on the track. Unfortunate, but it's going to happen here and there. Back up at the front, let's take things back live. Justin Morton is keeping things on the track. Shane Vickery recently hopping off the track also. That might have been the crash earlier. Yep, that was that. But he went off the track again, so Vickery might be... Vickery is going to just try to limp his way back to the pits, it looks like, unfortunately. Up here at the front.
Still a tight battle, though. 28 all over
getting
the back
a little
bumper.
wiggling.
Yeah,
getting a little wiggle in his step there. That was Veverovsky. Able to hold on to it.
Again, the conditions all night long, they're gonna play a factor, Joe. It's gonna be tough, but you kind of will see towards the end of the night, all through these heat races down to the LCQs, you'll start to see the cream of the crop will start to rise. And this is a very tight battle for the front. This is neck and neck. And this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. This front stretch is going to be very, very vital all night long as you see a move to the inside here by Vasareski.
Huge move. Veverovsky with first place now, and then they're switching back. Veverovsky goes off wide. That big move cost him. He really had some speed, a really good head of steam going, but that's not going to help you very much on a wet track. Veverovsky off to the outside. He's back in now. He's fallen into third place. Warling secures second, but Warling is already in Veverovsky's sights. So I think Veverovsky's going to try for another play around Warling. He had a good position to take the shot at Morton, but Morton just held on to that first place with a nice clean line. And like you said, that sort of semi-reserved racing paid off, where you had a driver around him taking moves and pushing a little bit harder. Morton did not, and it ended up paying off.
I think we're going to see that a lot too. Veverovsky there going into turn one really kind of drove the dry racing line, and I think maybe just for a second in the heat of the battle and making that move to the inside, maybe just kind of forgot for a second. Wait, there's that big puddle there at the bottom of Paddock Hill, and you kind of saw it, slowed him down on the outside, and it allowed Warling to make that move to the inside. I do think Veverovsky is faster. I just think he's going to have to spend some time to get back up to these leaders right now.
I think you're right about that. Many people say that the racing line just changes. It's the opposite in the wet, where you would see water grouping up. Ooh, a little bit loose from Warling. He holds on to it. It's going to cost him just a bit of speed. And off the track for a brief second, that was Greg McEnany. He's back now, though. Let's see if he can hold on to it. Yep, Greg looks like he got a little bit. Yep, just overdrove it a little bit. Spun it, perfect 180. Almost a perfect J-turn back in the other direction now. He's back on the track, though, a little bit behind. 6 seconds behind the car ahead of him. And a full 26 down from our leader, Morton. Morton is...
Sorry about that, Joe. Go ahead. Oh, man, another spin. That's a bummer. I mean, we were talking about that earlier. And this was going to be my point, Joe, was that you really, even if you do make a mistake early in these heat races, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the top 6 advance, we said, correct? The top 6 advance from these heat races to the teacher automatically? Yeah, so the top 6 will advance automatically. You really got to put yourself, if you're not going to make that top 6, in a good position for the LCQ, because that's going to determine your grid spot in the LCQ. So even if you're not in that top 6, it's not over, and you still want to battle for the rest of those spots.
Yeah, the race is not over. There's going to be a couple chances for everybody here tonight to make their name. So if you can just get through your heat, it's going to pay off. Now here we are on board with Northway, Robert Northway.
Back at
Northway holding on to
there,
7th place
place
right now. Yeah, Kuhn is trying his best to find that extra amount of drive. It's very similar to the situation we've got at the front. You got a driver who's trying to drive a little bit harder to play some catch up and trying not to let that bite him in the butt, so to speak, as he looks to the car ahead of him.
It's interesting too to watch the heat races and see, because it kind of takes, when they qualify, it takes in this case I believe every third driver. So as we see a little bit of issue here maybe for Vavrovsky, it looks like he went off track here, maybe going to drop another spot. Let's see what happened, Joe.
Yeah, he was gonna comment on the battle going on in the front, and Vavrovsky just unfortunately let the car get out from under him in this turn, oversteers it, spins, and keeps it more or less straight to get back on the track, but cost him big time trying to get back. Now Vavrovsky in 4th place just can't quite seem to hold it down. With the moments that he's closest to doing so, the track is jumping up to bite him back.
We talked about that before the race too, Joe, is that you're not only going to have to battle the drivers around you, you really are going to have to battle the track. And something that I've kind of noticed is a lot of these spins have been when the weight is transferring in the car. So they're either at the crests of hills, or they're at the bottom of the hills, or they're when the car weight is shifting from one side or the other. And I think especially that with the combination of the rain is really giving our drivers problems right here, as we see a move for position here.
Contact.
Oh, they touch.
Contact with Warling, and Warling has spun out the number 9 of Justin Morton. Morton sideways into the gravel. His back is into the tires. That contact, unfortunate, but definitely not necessary. Warling, with an incredibly hard drive, making contact with Justin Morton and sending him off into the gravel. Warling holding on and taking that 1st place spot. Watch this here. Very aggressive move. Big squeeze. Just gets up and under the inside tire, sends his rival off. Still going green right now. 4 laps to go in Heat 1. Warling now in 1st place. Trevor Vavrovsky happily moving up to 2nd, but he's got 2.5 seconds at least to make up between Warling and himself. Bataska in 3rd, Justin Morton trailing in 4th, and Brian Barnes in 5th.
It's just been really what driver can minimize the mistakes up to this point, and then who can stay out of trouble as well. I mean, Morton had, I wouldn't say had it in the bag, but was in command of this race for most of it there until the contact with Warling. And that's it. I will say from racing here, it is tough. You can kind of see how in the turn 1 there, it does start to kind of turn down, especially if you're on the outside. It's going to naturally kind of steer you in that direction. So 2 drivers kind of going for the same place and getting together now, but really water under the bridge for both of these drivers, no pun intended, with the current conditions, Joe. But you're gonna have to kind of just push it off and keep going. I will say the good thing for Morton is he's still in a transfer spot, even with all of that happening. So
yeah, that's fair. He was able to maintain and keep the car more or less straight in the direction he needed to recover quickly. And the car went backwards into the wall, but I don't think that his tires hit the wall. I think that it was just the back fairing. So maybe he's got some engine damage potentially, but he's able to hold on right now to the end of this stint, at least for sure. I think he's going to have a good position. So like you said, he's in the right spot to be able to make the best use of this heat. And by the time he's got a new car for the next race, he should be in good shape. That first turn, we see him coming down here now. It's called Paddock Hill Bend. That's not an easy turn. Like you said, you're going to be flying potentially flat out as you go in there off the straight, and it's a long, fast right turn. And here in the wet, if you don't know the wet line, you're going to end up in that puddle, and you're going to end up in the wall.
Yeah, I really don't know what it is with racetracks in Britain especially, but they really like blind corners going down hills. I don't know why. And then as you're going down the hill, as you see here, you can't really see the line like you said, so you kind of have to pick a spot and hope you're right. And while that's happening, you're going over the crest of the hill, all the weight is getting taken off the car, and then as you go down the hill, it's being slammed back on. So I will say probably this first section here, and then with this roundabout here heading back down the hill, this track in itself is very difficult, but it's just a really demanding couple of sections there, and then just the long straightaway you have and all the speed that you're carrying into turn one. I think that's just why we're seeing the issues we have so far there.
I think you're right about that. At the end of the first heat is coming up here. Travis Warling looks like he's set to take it away. Second place, so Trevor Vavrovsky is only 2.5 seconds behind, but it's not going to be enough. Here comes the checkered flag. Travis Warling across the line, taking heat number 1 here at the Formula Ford Festival. Very aggressive heat by Warling.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say, I don't think Warling was trying to make contact there. I really don't. At the same time, if you do and your car is still okay, what are you gonna do at that point, right, Joe? Are you gonna pull over and stop and get out of the car, right? So yeah. But and nothing against what you were saying there, but it's just that happens in racing sometimes, and we'll see if maybe in the future, if those drivers are close to each other, we'll see if the racing is tighter or if they just let it go. But I don't think anything was. It's heat 1. I don't think you're racing, that gloves out yet. I think that was just a mistake that happened.
Yeah, and if you're driving open wheel cars, you know that if you're driving close and tight like that, where you don't have as many options as you might on a dry track, your tires are sometimes going to get inside the other tires. And at that point, anything could happen, and we saw it.
Don't high five with tires. Not a great idea. Don't high five with tires.
Don't high five with tires. Nope, especially not. No up high, no down low, because everybody will end up far too slow. How do you like that? All right, and we're going to go ahead and give a quick grid here for this standing start of heat number 2, which is about to kick off. At the front, we've got Ross Banfield. Number 2, Brian McGreevy. Number 3, that's Seb Tixier. Number 4 is Brenton Foster. Number 5, Stephen Verweyen. Number 6, Sebastian Jackson. 7, Wayne Hutchinson. 8, John Wade. 9, William Pletcher. And 10, Don Dolson. 11, David Gargaro Jr., 12, Jake Fox, 13, Ron McPherson, 14, Joshua Mertz, green flag, and we are off on heat number 2. Big jump out to the start with Banfield. Touch of contact, maybe. Everybody's coming down Paddock Hill now. Let's see who's practiced and who hasn't. Ronald McPherson, first to crash. He's off track. Few others there holding on. Everybody now just afraid to potentially lose position, which is a good thing. Let's get a look at that action.
Isn't a good thing, but I get what you're saying. Let's see here
again. Afraid to lose position, I should say.
Right. I get what but the way we're just seeing that's turn 1, and it's just the weight transfer again, Joe. Just another driver. It's. I think we're going to see that trend continue all night long of just the car snapping loose on people, because it's just kind of, it's what this car does. It's you can see how narrow the tires are, and you don't have a lot of braking force, and it's really easy to get a lot of off throttle oversteer on these cars as well.
Yeah, thank you for your insight here. Again, I've only had a little bit of experience with some of the open wheel races, but this car seems like it's got a lot to give when you know it, and if you don't know it, it's going to be something that'll slap you. Like you mentioned, it's snapping back on you, and every time there is an elevation change here at Brands Hatch, that's a chance for this car to get out from underneath you. And there's a few really egregious elevation changes I've been noticing here, just hills that seemingly come out of nowhere and drop you, a good several feet within a really short amount of time, and then load up the tires again almost immediately.
Not only that, you don't have a lot of give in the suspension of these cars as well, so there's not a lot of travel when you do slam down and you make those weight adjustments, and especially with the wetness and with everybody starting to run the same line and rubber getting laid down on this track as these heats continue, it's just going to lay down a nice little film of rubber that water is just going to sit on top of. So you'll probably see this track, if they don't reset it between sessions, just continue to get a little bit more slippery as the day goes on.
That's a lot of fun from the booth point of view and not from on the track point of view, I'm sure. Speaking of the track, the battle for third place was heating up a little bit. Stephen Verwayen was able to get that third place position away from Brian McGreevy. McGreevy now is fighting for his life against Brenton Foster. Foster signaling that he wants to use the speed that he's got to get around McGreevy, but McGreevy is driving just defensively enough, smooth inputs, but just defensively enough that Foster is not quite able to find the angle. I don't think he wants to risk it for the biscuit, so to speak. And that's keeping him from making that jump.
So we gotta go on board too. I alluded in the first heat, Joe, that if you get to watch the first heat, you can kind of see how these passes develop as we see a move to the inside here. And I will say, that's a heck of a move right there up the inside with all the water and the speed that you're carrying through that hairpin to not slide up at all and just hold that inside line. That's not easy to do, especially in these conditions. Really, in the optimal conditions, it's not easy to hang that line down there. But I think if you're able to watch some of these heats before getting in one yourself, you're able to see how some of those passes can be made. We saw in that first heat, anytime there is an attempt to make an overtake, there's contact. So I think as the night goes on, we'll see these drivers get more comfortable with what they can do, and we'll probably see the racing clean up a little bit.
All right, that's what I want to see too. It's that development of skill over a short period of time, that reassessment and analysis of conditions. That's a lot of fun. Here we got a grid vision replay of I think it was Josh Mertz who crashed.
It is Josh Mertz. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Goes around almost the full 360 there. Just him, thankfully. No one else caught up in that. Mertz now in 12th, still on the track, not quite a lap down. The only one who's a lap down right now, that's going to be Jake Fox. We've got contact, though. I believe Brenton Foster just crashed. Let's get eyes on that.
He's in the pits now, so I would agree with that, but we'll see what happens here.
Foster coming around. On the inside now. Ooh!
Oh, interesting.
Maybe loses speed, loses control, and gets a little bit of a spear. Wheel failure, he's saying. Hardware failure from the 23.
It looked interesting, didn't it, Joe? It didn't look like the normal.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here.
There
yeah, that's definitely a hardware failure right there. That's a bummer. That is a real bummer. But that one did look different. It didn't look like he just got loose because he kind of just stayed in the slide. That was the interesting one about that. But that's a bummer too if the driver behind him. You don't really know where to go when that happens right in front of you. But that's tough for everybody involved. Oh.
Yeah, it's something you can do. Battle for the transfer. There goes the the battle's over. Right as we talk about the battle for the transfer happening here, we've got a car off. That's David Gargaro Jr. He's back on the field now. But what a slide right off the track. He was really pushing it into that turn. Just wanted something out of it. Wasn't able to get it, unfortunately. All it gave him was probably a bit of whiplash and a few places lost. He's back down in 10th now. He's really up one position from where he started, but he wanted more out of this for himself. Lap 7 of 12, 5 to go here. Ross Banfield still up at the front, has no peers at the moment. The battles seem to be happening a little bit further back. The closest battle we've got right now, that's Don Dolson and William Fletcher. Fletcher is trying to make the outside pass on Dolson a little bit. These are two Canada boys. Fletcher is from America. Sebastian Jackson ahead of Don Dolson is from Canada. Canada dominating the front of the field right now in terms of the top 5 cars. But Dolson is able to hold off at the moment. Fletcher is signaling, but Dolson pulls away pretty steadily. Let's see where this battle goes. Here now to the outside goes Fletcher. Nope, not quite. Not enough speed. He's going to fall back a little bit. He's going to try to get back on the line that it looks like Dolson's drawing for him. All that spray, though, has got to make it impossible to see.
That was a smart move by Dolson off that last corner, too, Joe. He kind of knew that he could use his momentum to kind of carry it off and cut off the nose there with Fletcher, but that also let him to get the better drive off the corner, so he was able to hold him off going to the 1 there.
And it looks like he's been making those kind of decisions left and right here, as his line has been very, very dedicated to itself and smooth. He hasn't really sacrificed his line in the sake of defense. The line is defense itself, especially with the spray, especially in these conditions. It's going to be a significant challenge for Fletcher to make this pass on this track right now, unless he's really got the cojones.
And we've seen just passing is it's not easy. I would say it's not easy anytime on this track. We touched about it at the beginning of the racetrack, and position and qualifying well was going to be really important, especially leading into the heat races. But it's just going to be so hard to pass, and we'll see as they go into turn one again, Joe, if we'll see a clean pass here or if we see more contact between drivers.
That's right. And we're coming down off that last turn, going across the start finish line. That's where the pass can occur, and it finally did. Ross Banfield, sorry, I was looking at his name for a second. William Fletcher moves up into the 5th place position, takes it from Don Dolson, and breaks up Canada's chokehold on the top 5 positions.
Do you want to point out, though, you saw it again, though, Joe, when Dolson was to the inside there. I think with the wetness of the track as well, if you're on that outside line when it starts to camber into turn one there, I think the cars are actually sliding down a little bit. So that's something we'll have to keep watching as the night goes on.
Yeah, this is you're going to put the car somewhere, and then the weight transfer of the car is going to put it somewhere completely different. You got to make that work for you. Whoop. Wow. Right through the puddle he goes. Yeah. Right through the heaviest part of the puddle. Kept it straight as an arrow, though. Able to come on back.
Looked really cool.
Who's that? Is that Seb Tixier? I think so.
Yeah,
all right. One of the guys who I want to see make it far tonight. His name sounds like he belongs in the Bunta Eve Classic. So you know that he's going to drive a fast car.
Now this is open wheel racing.
Now this is open wheel racing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So Seb Tixier right now, he's up in front, just behind Ross Banfield, but just behind is a couple of seconds. So where's the battle happening right now? Well, that's going to be William Fletcher again. William Fletcher is being followed by Don Dolson. Dolson could potentially close that gap. It's only about a half a second. It's probably one of the closest battles we've got on the field right now as we're coming around on 2 laps to go here at Brands Hatch. Let's have a look and see if anybody else is throwing some blocks or any moves, but everyone's kind of gotten into a good groove and found their line. That line was what I was noticing with Don Dolson. He was driving such a specific line, but when it went wide on him, that's when Fletcher was able to make the move. And diving to the inside was what gave him the speed he needed to make that pass and to get himself into the top 5.
Yeah, and I pointed out that Dolson made that move to defend earlier. You really got to time it right. You got to come across the nose to kill the momentum of the driver trying to pass you. But if you do it just a little bit too late or a little bit too early, like you mentioned, it kind of leaves you flat-footed, and he was able to pass there. As you see the flagman there with the white flag in the hand. 1 more lap to go in the second heat race.
All right, the white flag is going. We are on pace to start Heat 3 in a few minutes here, but let's finish Heat 2. Ross Banfield out in front. Sorry, once again. Oh, it's now Ross Banfield with the Mario helmet. So that, that makes the car go a little bit faster as well. I think I might have seen a golden mushroom in there. He might have been popping to get this kind of speed and maintain it, especially. Let's just hope nobody's got a bullet bill in the back of the pack.
Oh, that would be funny. That'd be good if you had a bullet bill.
Well, the checkered flag goes, and iRacing says no to bullet bill right now, but I'm sure if we write enough letters, they might give us an April Fool's joke where we'll get some.
Oh, and a celebratory slide from Banfield as well. That's impressive. Or maybe he was just stopping. I think he was sliding. I'm going to say he was sliding to celebrate. But a little bit of a battle here coming to the line between the 17 and the 21. Oh, the 21 touches him. It spins. That was for the final transfer spot, Joe. That means Hutchison is going to take it. And remember, Dolson was all the way up in 5th place at one point.
He was. You're right. Dolson now in 8th. Unofficially, the situation looks like it's Banfield, Tixier, Verweyen, Jackson, and Fletcher. Your top 5 out of this heat. This was a good heat. This was a heat that ended a little bit more smoothly than the other one. The other one had some really tight battles, really up until the end there. Banfield, very, very good drive out of him. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing Banfield up against some of the other folks on the field later on. Heat 3 is getting ready, folks, and we are going to take it down to the grid here and give you an idea of who's racing. In first on the grid, it's Christian Challoner. Second, it's going to be Gavin Barber. Third, Ashley Cucci. Fourth, Dan Stevens. 5th, Adam Johnson. 6th, Joseph M. Homan. 7th, Jason McSparron. 8th, Kevin Santana. 9th, Mark Santana. 10th, Brian Scribner. 11th, Brett Trozen. 12th, Phil Otto. 13th, Steve Paulison. And 14th, Scott Kukas.
Santana brothers, maybe?
Santana brothers, Santana family. Could be father and son.
It could be, yeah.
Green
Or
flag
maybe-
is out, and we are go on Grid Vision.
I was going to say, or maybe even not related at all. Move to the inside, 3 wide possibly going in the turn 1 here. A little bit more spicy than the heats we've seen before.
Yeah, great leaps from some of these guys off the jump. Not as much of a string situation here. We got guys who are pushing for that middle of the pack, that middle high position. Some different racing lines being attempted here. Maybe working out for some folks, maybe not. We've got Adam Johnson working his way down now. 2 wide, just on the outside there.
Big move by Stevens there, too, to cut off the position for 3rd place on Johnson.
Wonderful. Dan Stevens with a bit of defense. He's now tight on the inside. Now the lines have stretched out a little bit. The 2 wide situations have cooled off. And the dominant driver right now is Christian Challoner. Our pole sitter is also sitting up in 1st place. Gavin Barber behind him by about 1.5 seconds and increasing. So it looks like Challoner's got a pretty good line on the practice he had to do for tonight's race. Stevens is now in a fight for his life against Adam Johnson. And we got a car off Kevin Santana.
Good job by Santana to, I was going to say keep it out of the wall, and then drove directly into the wall. But really, check this out, Joe. Did a really good job to keep it off of anything, I believe.
Goes down just a little bit of oversteer.
I didn't see the beginning part of that. I take it back. I apologize. Makes a lot more sense now, but you can see trying to get it together. I think that's when he realizes the car's broken, Joe.
Yeah, car's busted. Very toasted, unfortunate situation. We'll see what happens, though, as time goes on. It looks like Santana's back in the pits, and he's probably going to be done.
I would say at least for this race, for sure.
At least for this race, very much so. He's got another chance coming up, though, later, as anybody who doesn't make it into the feature is going to have some chances here. So we'll see how things go, though. Coming around right now, Christian Challoner.
A little bit of trouble for the 333, it looks like. Looks like they're missing a nose cone there. I didn't see what happened.
Yeah, that's Mark Santana. He is missing a nose cone, and I do not know how that happened.
I don't know if
Just
that,
got
I think that
spun
was
around.
another spin.
Well, it looks like he went and got a repair, and now he's back on the road. So wherever it was, it's back.
I don't know if the nose cone and the spin were related. It looks like the nose cone might have been a previous injury, which I think you can lose your nose cone on these cars, and it's not the biggest deal in the world, Joe. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But I think you can. There are aero dependent to an extent with the draft, but I don't think you're completely like losing a Formula One wing. You're not completely toast if you lose your nose cone.
Right, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I would be worried about aero, but I think if it's you're not Formula One, like you said, it could probably make it work for a while. It wouldn't be without having to pit for something just that cosmetic.
Well, if you're not going fast enough where the air can't push the car down too, right? So
Also fair, yeah. As we watch a couple of cars here, Jason McSparron is sitting in 7th right now. He's got a couple cars behind him that are forcing him to try to drive a little bit harder. That was where the 2 wide position most recently was, as it looks like there is still an Adam Johnson in the rear view of Dan Stevens. Adam Johnson is waiting patiently to make his move. I even wonder if he's just not planning to. He could just be using using Dan Stevens' line as an example of where to keep his car just to get through what is going to be the last of our first 3 heat races here. But he's not driving it very hard. He's keeping it at pace with the car in front of him, but he's never really made the move to say, hey, I'm going to try to pass you, even though I think he probably could.
Well, keep in mind too, you're already transferred at this point, right? So you're fighting for position in the feature race at this point, which is important, but at the same time, you're not going to throw your race away over a single position on the grid, right? So I think that's one thing he's potentially thinking about. I think another thing is you might just want to wait, right? You might. Some people like to chase, some people like to be in the lead. Myself personally, I like to be chasing when I'm out on the racetrack, but. Who knows, right? If I had to put money on something, like if we were doing I don't know, like roulette, that like the
Yeah.
squares were like, you know, I'm not a gambler, right? But if I had to put money on something, I would say he's just content where he's at right now with a transfer spot.
That makes sense. And I'm watching him drive. He's got a little bit of a slip, just a touch. He almost lost it a lot on the last lap. He had a very tight moment there, but he is just not. He's sticking the car to his apexes way more than I guess some of the other guys are. It looks like the sun might actually be out right now. The track is wet, but it's overcast. I don't think it's currently raining. No, it is actively raining. Yep, we're at 100% precipitation. It is raining. There we go. I had a bad angle on that for a second, but it's been interesting to see someone up toward the front who's able to drive hard enough without having to drive too hard and make it work for them. And I guess this is the exact condition, the exact kind of place where that sort of really thrives.
Yeah, and some people do thrive in the rain. I am a little bit afraid of those people, not in like a bad way, but I just don't understand how they're faster in the rain. But some people really do thrive in these conditions. But oh, as we see a little bit of an incident here, oh man,
that was Gavin Barber.
Yeah, and I believe Johnson made through that unscathed. I'm not entirely sure. It looked like from our angle there for a second, Joe, he was heading straight into the danger zone.
Yep, Johnson looks like he's all right. Let's see what happens.
It was Barber.
Gavin Barber spins his car around. Oh, very dangerous. Cuts back.
He was just trying to lock it down there, and I think probably just with the wheel input that he had, it just kind of shot him back there.
Yeah, yep. It was just the car's resting momentum as it came to a rest. It was turned, and the wheels just said, "Okay, you want to go backwards? All right, let's go backwards."
Yeah.
And thankfully, he was able to keep it planted on the brake, and the car was able to roll to a stop. No major incidents there. Just a little bit of lost pride.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Brands Hatch Big One yet, which isn't a thing, but I'm just gonna coin that now.
The Brands Hatch Big One, the BHBO.
Yes, yeah. See here, you know, let's look at the transfer spot really quick. Let's see if there's a battle there. At least the gap between 6th and 7th actually doesn't look too close right now. I mean, and that really, if you're back there though, and like I've been saying all night long, Joe, if you're outside the transfer right now, you just want to try to get yourself as close to the 7th as you possibly can and put yourself in a good spot for that LCQ, especially in this third heat. You're going to be towards the back of the grid in the LCQ, so you really want to try to make your positions count here if you're not going to make that transfer.
Absolutely, and that's Jason McSparren right now. He had a pretty good run earlier, but he did there were a couple of moments where he got passed up, and it feels like he's just never quite found the speed to be competitive during this heat. He's lost no positions in this heat. He stayed at 7th when other cars around him have almost all moved up slightly. So it's just a matter, I think, of confidence. Maybe Jason McSparren, if he had a little bit more time in the wet, I bet you'd see him a little bit faster, and I bet you'd see him up a few positions right now.
I think that goes. Too, though. Well, another part of it too, Joe, is the length of these heats. I will say for heat racing, these are a little bit longer as far as heats go, and it gives you a little bit positions, or a little bit more time where. You know, we were seeing the qualifying times where these drivers weren't that far off, but those, you know, couple of tenths of a second over the course of, 12 laps are going to make a difference. So I think he's still fast out there, and he's definitely going to be competitive in the LCQ. It's just, over time you see that regression to the mean, as I like to call it, with the lap times.
The regression to the mean. I see exactly what you're saying. 3 laps left to go. Brands Hatch Heat 3 at the Formula Ford Festival. In the wet here, outside of Kent, England.
In the rain, an English festival.
English festival. It's got to be in the rain. Didn't they just have, what's it called, Goodwoods? Something like that? They had recently they had a festival. Yeah, yes. Festival of Speed, and that was in the wet also. Good old Jimmy Broadbent was doing some racing there, or tried to, except I think he got rained out.
I mean, I will say it's really cool that we have the technology to be able to go racing in the rain now. I know we keep making a joke to it as we see a little bit of on-track action here as the 78 of Challenger moves to the inside. I think that's to put a car a lap down. I don't think that was for position. But that's still a nerve-wracking moment as a driver, especially in the lead with 2 laps to go. I mean, you trust your drivers out on the racetrack, but it's still nerve-wracking making a pass wherever you are.
You are the first place driver running up against the guy who for some reason can't get out of last place. You're going to be nervous. No matter what, even if you're in the top split race, you're going to be nervous lapping the guy who's in last place because you're kind of wondering in the back of your head, what is he doing back here? And is it because he can't get his line? Am I going to run into a guy who doesn't know his line? Am I going to run into a guy who doesn't know how to, brake and gas? What's it going to be? Sometimes you just run into a guy and it's just not his day. White flag is out. Final lap has begun. Challoner, as we've been following him, has been dominating this race now. He's a full 8.5, almost 8.5 seconds ahead of Dan Stevens behind him. Keeping eyes here on him as he comes up and over. The weight on that car shifting just a little bit. He has got this thing locked in the rut right now, and he's setting lap times of about, let's see, his best time so far tonight was a 54.09. Last one was a 54.43. So he is setting some beautiful times to follow and to keep up with. Anybody in the 55 range, you're going to have to keep up with Christian Challoner. You're going to have to work real hard.
Yeah, and he comes around the final corner. I will say the most dominant performance we've seen, I think, so far in a heat race, just wire-to-wire domination as he comes to the checkered flag. He's going to lock up heat number 2, and we'll see how the rest of the positions fall. If you're one of these drivers first through 6, you're just trying to maintain and see that checkered flag across the line.
And so he has. That's Christian Challoner, Mr. Christian Challoner, followed by Dan Stevens, Adam Johnson, Kevin Barber in 4th, and Joseph Homan in 5th. That's the end of Heat 3. 6 of these drivers at the top here. I guess I'll give you the 6th driver. That's Brian Scrivener. He's above the line. Those 6 drivers will make their way onto the feature. We're going to be moving on to the C-Main Heat here in a second. Another 12 laps, 1 driver of which will make it to the feature.
Yeah, and that's why we were talking about if you weren't in those top 6 spots, that's... I respect the hustle here. I respect the effort of getting to the checkered flag, going backwards. Let's just watch this. Let's see if this, because this isn't easy.
This is impressive. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Maybe
if he can make it all the way around, I'll hand it to him. You know what I mean? That's pretty good. But we got to get going with the next heat. I understand that one completely.
And here we are with C-Main. 12 laps around. 8 are going to proceed from here to the feature, excuse me. And we've got the guys gridding up right now. Let's tell you who it's going to be. Robert Northway in the 1st position. Jason McSparron. 3rd, Don Dolson. 4th, Ryan Steele. 5th, Phil Otto. 6th, David Gargaro Jr. 7th, Greg McEnany. 8th, Mark Santana. 9th, Jake Fox. 10th, Bryce Roberts. 11th, Ashley Cucci. And 12th, Brenton Foster. Waiting for the green flag here. Everybody is gridded up. Get those engines revved just a little bit to the right number and then drop the hammer. I said drop the hammer. There we go, boys. They didn't hear me, see. And what a start. In the back, we've got some traffic, but in the front, zooming out to the front, we've got Robert Northway. Still 3 wide in the back now for the last position. That's Brenton Foster, Bryce Roberts, Ashley Cucci looking for places and just trying not to crash into each other. We've seen wheels lock up already tonight. We don't want to see it happen again. 8 of these drivers, remember, are going to make their way over to the feature.
You mentioned it, 8 are going to make it through, so I think that's where you're going to see a majority of your battles is going to be through about that 7th to 10th spot. I think that's why you saw such an aggressive move from some of those drivers farther up in the pack, just try to get a nice easy spot there as we see a really aggressive move by one driver there. I believe that was Ashley Cucci, just able to make it stick though. You got to cut these lines off if you want to make it into the feature race, and she's sitting there right on the bubble in 7th position right now.
Very good. Don Dolson now working that outside line again. Can he make it work for him? He's on the outside of David Gargaro Jr. Gargaro zooms ahead a little bit. Dolson falling back. He's holding the line back a little bit. 2 wide behind him. That's Ryan Steele and Ashley Cucci. One of them moving off a little bit. Steele moving off track just slightly. There's a little bit of contact now. Cucci getting, who is that? Let me see. That was Jake Fox into the back of Ashley Cucci just briefly. Fox losing it again for a second. Lots of spinny wheel action happening here and around the 8th and 9th position. Just as you were saying, this is where the battle's really going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I did mention earlier in the broadcast that you can be patient and you can work your way through to the LCQ and work there. It's not over if you don't make it for the heat race. But now at this point, if you don't make it, it goes without saying it is over, right? So these battles for these last couple of spots are going to be intense. You can still see it here. This run from about 6 back onto about, I would say, 11th place is. I wouldn't say you could throw a blanket under them, but one mistake from any of these drivers, you could easily pick up a couple spots.
Man, these dives we're seeing on Paddock too, they're humongous. You get so much speed going down across the start finish line, and you just want to send it flying over that curve. But when your car goes down the hill and you lose that weight and it's in the wet, man, it's terrifying to see some of these guys. And you can see the gears turning in their head. They're thinking to themselves, is this it? Do I throw it here? And speaking of throwing it, the 23 of Brenton Foster is trying to throw a pass now on Don Dolson. He's on the inside, wheel touch just a little bit. He maintains control. Dolson still holding on as well in the front position now. He's in 6th. It's going to be Brenton Foster in 7th, still holding on. Very, very good driving.
Got to be careful. He had a bit of a wiggle there when he was getting past, Joe. And if you are going to get past, as we see him take a dive to the inside here, I think just maybe showing and trying to force Dawson to defend there. It's going to make him go wide. Dawson's going to spin. Fox is going to spin too. I think just trying to avoid what he was seeing in front of him, got him on a little bit on the brakes too much, sent the back end around for him.
Yep, there goes Don Dolson. There goes Jake Fox. They're going to try to get back on the track and back in it, but at this point, it's an uphill climb. We got another 8. We got 8 laps to go, and they've got a ways to make up. Not really going to be a yellow to save the situation here. We've got too much track to work with, and it looks like these spins have been pretty individual for the most part.
Yeah, we don't throw yellows here. These are local yellows.
Oh, very true. Yeah. I forgot we're on a road course. I'm so used to my oval stuff. Ooh, just snapped on him, like you said.
It's just so easy. That's a really wet part of the track right now, too. That's about the lowest part of the track. So you see that turn right before. If you're not careful, you could pick up a lot of water on your tires and carry it into that high-speed part of the track. And I think that's just what we saw right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now down a little bit lower, we've got cars that are almost too wide now. Brenton Foster trying his best to hold off Ryan Steele. Steele had some pretty great speed coming down that hill into Paddock again, but Foster just able to hold him off with his defensive driving. It's not too wiggly. He's holding a straight line, but again, that's just working for him. It was kind of like what Don Dolson was doing in his earlier heat, just driving that line, using it to be a defensive line. Brenton Foster seeing the car start to snap on him now a little bit, as maybe he's not quite reading the line as well as I thought he was.
Well, you got to be really careful with these rain tires too, with the tires in the rain, that is, because you can get heat in them, right? And that's not terribly bad, but they're gonna get a little bit hotter than your normal tires. So if you're sliding the tires a lot out there, or if you spin the car in any kind of way, it's gonna be really hard to cool that tire down quickly again, as we see a little bit of an off track there for Steele. He's not only trying to chase Roberts down, the car that was in front of him down, which I believe was Foster, but he's also trying to stay out of that final transfer spot, or trying to stay in that final transfer spot. Sorry, I don't know how to talk right now.
It's all right. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit turned around too, watching some of these guys, and they're putting their skills on display. Speaking of, Phil Otto now up in 3rd place. Ashley Cucci is trying their best to make it up past Phil Otto. Can they do it? They're now on the inside.
Been quite a run, too.
Yeah, really an amazing run. 7 up, along with Brenton Foster. Now 8 up, getting that 3rd place position. Woo, losing control for a second.
On to it. Made
this
it stick.
Is Paddock. Found the clean line, found the dry spot on Paddock, was able to tuck it in there, but what a clencher for just a second there as Ashley comes around into 3rd place and has it set and locked in. That is what I was trying to say.
We've seen people make that adventurous move in the turn 1 a few times. We saw Foster actually make that fake to the inside, and that's what got Don Dolson all out of shape there. Now he finds himself in 12th position. So it's really a risk-reward scenario when you dive it in there as aggressively as you do in the turn 1, but Cucci was able to make it stick. That was very impressive.
5 laps to go. Phil Otto is trying to hold off David Gargaro Jr. Gargaro on the inside now. Here's where you can get some good speed going down across the start finish. Here comes Paddock. Gargaro doesn't quite take the bait. Or does he? Amazing exit from Paddock from Gargaro. He's got the nose. Going to try to put the car in there, and he's got the position.
Yeah, that's something we really haven't touched on, is the different ways you can enter and exit that corner. Do you want to sacrifice your entry speed? Oh, big wiggle there from the 41. Is he going to? Nope, going to go off track there. That's unfortunate for Roberts. That might drop him out of the transfer spot now. He's going to drop in the 9th.
Yeah, he had to ditch, though. That was either ditch or die in that kind of situation. And it's better to do that than to tie yourself up with 2 or 3 other cars and end a couple other nights. You know, fall back a little bit. You've got 4 laps left in order to work on that. Excuse me, 5 laps to go. As soon as I say that, 4 laps to go. You got 4 laps left to make that up. So you never know what could happen. But Bryce Roberts now sitting in 9th place. He's just far enough behind Mark Santana that it's going to take a little bit of bad decision making from some of the guys ahead of him to give him that position back.
Big wheel out of steel there. That's going to give a run to Santana, I believe. I don't know. He was looking for it on the inside there, but thought better of it at least that time around. But Steele had a big wiggle there. He's got to gain the momentum back up again.
Way off the track. That's just Jason McSparren. McSparren goes off just trying to avoid some bad blood, it looks like, and it's going to cost him several positions now. Bryce Roberts wants to take that position back, doesn't quite get it back from McSparren. McSparren holding on to that 8th place slot, just barely, almost cost him the transfer. And now Bryce Roberts sees his best chance at getting into the next part of this competition right ahead of him, just a car length ahead of him with 3 laps to go. Here comes the flat out section. And he falls back, does not take the bait into Paddock going down in this wide turn.
Was a smart move, I think, from Roberts, though. We've seen a lot of drivers really try to press the issue in the turn 1, and if you don't stick it just right, you can find yourself off in the sand there on the outside of the turn. So he's going to file back in. Still has some time here. 3 laps isn't a lot of time, but he's filing it back in, and you just saw it in that last camera angle and on the last onboard we have, Joe. I think the sun's starting to peek out just a little bit here. It's still raining, as you can see, but it does look like in some places of this track it has stopped raining a little bit.
That's what we like to see, just a little bit. Oh, Bryce Roberts with a big spin, a loss, and another spin around. He's facing backwards. That's going to be it for Roberts. Not going to be a way he's going to make that transfer line at this point with only a lap or 2 to go. Let's see what happened here. He was really driving hard, went to the inside. I think he just corrected a little too much. Yep. Tried to fix it after overcorrecting and settling into too far of an inside line on that curve, and it just cost him.
Caught a little bit of water on the pooling on the inside tires too, up against the curbing. So I think when he went to move back to the right there, it kind of, how you saw that the rear end just kind of slipped out from behind him. But I will say, it goes without saying, one driver that hasn't had those problems is Mr. Northway here up at the front of the pack.
Northway is very similar to the last race that we just saw. A dominant driver. He is at 8.5 seconds, over 8.5 seconds over the current driver behind him, just making time. And what's going to really be fun to watch, I think, Ian, is when we get to the races where these top guys, these dominant guys, are facing each other. I want to really see who is at the top of their game in the Formula Ford tonight, who is really showing us how to drive this car.
Well, and don't get me wrong, the heat format is fun, right? You get to see a lot of different racing. It's nonstop racing, but that's what it's there for. It's to set the field for the big feature race. We got one more, I believe, last chance qualifier to go after this one before we get into that feature race. But of course, that's what we want to see. Is we want to see the heavy hitters going after each other. And one of them we're going to look at tonight is going to be the 26 car of Northway as he comes to collect the checkered flag. He is going to be your first LCQ winner, barring any unforeseen circumstances in the next, I'd give it 120 feet or so.
Well, here come 2 circumstances right up behind him, but it looks like they're going to be okay. They go sailing past now. It's Northway, Ashley Cucci, Brenton Foster, David Gargaro Jr., Mark Santana, Jason McSparren, Ryan Steele, and Phil Otto above the bubble here and looking to move on into the next race. Just finishing things up here at Super Wet Brands Hatch. I've got my mug of hot cocoa to stave off the British chill.
What a drive from Ashley Kutcher too. I think that was 8 positions all in all. I think after it was all
9.
said and done, 9 positions. That's impressive. Yeah, I think that was a heck of a drive.
Kutcher and Foster both were up 9 positions from where they started. So both very good drives, very hard driving from both of them. But Northway with that takeaway win, what a drive. Just really incredible stuff out of there.
Yeah, and normally I have all those fancy stats, but to make fun of myself again, I joined the session as a driver, so I don't have any of those right now. Hey, look, it's me again. There I am.
Who's this Ian Fisher loser, and why is he
Yep.
in the race right now?
Yep, should not be there right now. Don't do what I do if you're looking into getting into the exciting career of sim racing broadcasting. Don't do that at home, kids. That's not good.
That's all kinds of fun. That's all kinds of fun. Well, in this race, let's break down the grid really quick for our B main. This is our second and final last chance qualifier here. First place, pole position, John Wade, followed by Nick Kuhn. Third, Brent Trozen. Fourth, Joshua Mertz. Fifth, Timothy Klaus. Sixth, Stephen Paulison. Seventh, Brian P. McGreevy. Eighth, Damian Coltley. Ninth, Ron McPherson. 10th, Ron McPherson, because Kevin Santana just passed him. 11th, Shane Vickery. 12th, Scott Kukas. And 13th, Ian Fisher, who's not going to be participating in tonight's race.
Yeah, my money was on him too. I really thought he was going to have it.
Hey, this is Brian McCready's 100th Major Series start, and we have a wreck. Several cars involved.
Mertz was one of them involved, I believe, the 11.
Well, happy birthday, McGreevy. Here, happy anniversary, McGreevy. He made it through.
That's what 100 races will do for you, to experience the incidents like this.
There's a 3-wide that quickly turns into a 2-wide that becomes what nobody wants to see. He just sent it around on the inside and tried to close up and find a position for himself. And when a car on the outside is trying to do the same thing, you're going to crash.
Yeah, I think just a little bit of wet tires there and just battling for position early and a little bit of racing eyes, you know what I mean? And just not being able to get the brake pedal enough and just sliding through a little bit. It's unfortunate. I don't think anybody meant to do anything, just a little bit of a mistake there. But yeah, it took out, I think, 3 other cars as we saw.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. And now we can see a few other people in the back of the pack now. Around the bubble area, Scott Kukas is in 9th, going wide a little bit, trying to hold on in that hot dog car. He's going to lose a position, unfortunately, to Kevin Santana. Santana taking down on the inside. If we go up to the front, though, and just check up and see who's really dominating this race early on, it's John Wade, who's 2 seconds up on Timothy Klaus right now.
But after that little bit of a bobble there, I think he's going to able, but we have a battle for the lead now as they go side by side.
He was still in first, right as we said he was doing it, though. It looks like I put the curse on him. Klaus coming up and taking advantage of that.
I was trying not to laugh.
I could hear it
right as you said it.
Hey, you know what's funny is I was trying to look for stats at the exact same moment, and that's what I get for it.
We'll see what happened here. Just coming through this last turn where we have seen some problems here, and then you can see the exact moment where the winds from Joe's Word hits the back of the car and sends it around.
Yep. All my hot air got up under those tires and just sent it flying.
Which is not as funny for Wade, I will admit, if he's watching this back at any point later, but just the timing of it was very, very perfect. And he's still in a transfer spot right now, still in second, and I think he does have something for Klaus. Klaus was very fast earlier in his heat race as well, but I think this is going to be the battle for the lead that we're going to see for the rest of this race.
Yeah, I think he's got something in the pocket too. We're going to find out. We have another 8 laps to go, so there's plenty of time to see what kind of tricks he's got in terms of getting back up and back past Timothy Klaus, making the most of a bad situation. But I think that the driving we've seen from him so far, it was dominant early on up until that slip, so let's see if he can make the most of it.
It wasn't even that big of a slip either. He really didn't lose that much time. If Klaus wasn't there, he'd still be in the lead to this race right now. So really not too bad, all things considered, for the 46 machine so far.
That's very true. And we've got Manami Beach in the chat saying, "Go Klaus." Got a fan in the audience.
It's working right now. That is good. So they're probably happy. Yeah.
Yeah. You got your man up at the front. Anybody else want to see somebody win and you're listening to the show tonight, go ahead and pop off in the chat. Let's get some conversation going.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Josh Mertz. Kind of bummed out about that, sitting in the pits right now. Now 1 lap down. I think he's done for the evening, but I was really hoping he was going to get through here as we see, right as I say it, another incident. So I guess there you go. There's my commentator's curse for the day. But there is the 11 machine of Joshua Mertz. I think he's going to go back to the pits now, and that will probably be the end of his night. Sorry about that, Josh. Didn't mean to jinx you again, buddy.
It's okay. The two of us have just got to figure out what we can do where we don't talk about race cars at all for the next couple of minutes.
Really great curving we have here at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, we're in the wrong job for that, though. Here up at the front, Klaus, John Wade now in second place, still looking for that position to get past, just hounding Timothy Klaus since that loss of position early on in the race. Now he's only got 7 laps left to make his move. And that doesn't seem like a lot. But in this case, when he's this close already, it could be. Oh, and he's going to make his move right now. Nope.
Oh,
it's Air Klaus.
What happened?
Well, what happened was it looks like Timothy Klaus lost control a little bit of his car. And then John Wade just decided to take to the skies.
The Brands Hatch big one, boys. We've all been fearing it. We knew it was going to happen.
This was it. Watch this here. He loses control of the car, tries to maintain it, and then woof, launches the other car.
And I know we're sim racing, but as far as being able to drive your car, that's a huge hit there. And you saw he tried to make a move to avoid it, but couldn't.
He did.
It's really gonna shake up the top here, as we see. I think that's gonna shake out to where Kuhn's gonna be our new leader. Again, top 8 drivers are going to transfer as you see that hit again. It's not going to hurt, but it's definitely not going to make your car easy to drive.
What a flight. That was a rallycross move. What a flight.
I'd break the rallycross car if we hit that jump.
And still back out on the track. Let's go check in and see how things are going. Nick Kuhn at the front now. Brett Trozen and Damian Coltley in your 1, 2, 3. Kuhn is only about 1.5 seconds ahead.
Something happened to McPherson too. 2 cars passed him there with a lot of speed. I think maybe another turn 1 mistake here. Yeah, just loses the back end again.
That's the hill. Crosses the track. Thankfully, there's no one there to get caught up.
It's hard to avoid there too if anything happens, because it's the fastest part of the racetrack. Then you're on the brakes already.
Yeah.
Oh, where to go?
There we go. Coming out of the pits, it looks like that's not Timothy Klaus. That's John
Santana,
Wade. He just came out, and Santana came out too. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Nick Kuhn up in front. Trozen and Coltley still holding down the 1, 2, 3 positions. Just behind Nick Kuhn, that's going to be John Wade. He's a lap down. Just probably trying to hold on for what he can right now with 5 laps to go in this runner-up feature, assuming this runner-up race.
Well, I mean, if you're, I guess if you're Wade right now, if anybody else in front of you has an issue with 5 laps to go, you can still hypothetically get yourself into that 8th spot. So.
Yep, just keep the car on the track.
A lot of times in heat racing, that's that's really what it is just survive to get into the future, and then that's pretty much a win. And then you kind of just let your cards fall where they may from there.
Keeping your car on the track seems to be the name of the game.
Not up in the air like we saw Wade doing. That was not as productive.
No.
Yeah. It was cool.
No.
Very cool.
Don't start your own airline. We're trying to keep the car on the track. 4 wheels. On the track. 4 wheels. Up here at the front, again, Wade is just riding behind the leader of Nick Kuhn, not making any plays. He can't really afford to, doesn't need to. Just going to take advantage of the place that he's at for a nice cruise. 4 laps to go. There's not too many battles shaking up. I think everybody got shooken up during the first part of this heat. And now we're seeing everyone is on kind of a high alert mode.
Yeah, I think you said it, Joe. I think everybody else is in survival mode, especially if you're on the racetrack now, with the exception of Wade, you're in a transfer spot, right? So you're just kind of, you know, I'm just not going to crash this car. I'm not going to end my own race. Is pretty much everybody's mentality at this point, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, that would be really nice to see. And that's, I think, where everybody's at mentally as we scan through the field here. We don't have guys driving nose to tail. We don't have folks throwing it sideways through any of these turns anymore. Everything's sort of leveling out. And I think that the guys who are going to make it through the transfer are just thinking ahead already. Probably thinking ahead, thinking, okay, just drive the car carefully, drive it straight, get through the last 4 laps, and then I'm going to have to really figure out how to drive this car because I'm going to be against people who really want that win. We've all been sitting here for, the better part of an hour and a half now. Let's get let's get a win on the board.
Yeah, and I think especially in this final race too, I think everybody saw how tight racing for position is great because you need to get the spot, but at the same time, if someone makes a mistake near you, you really don't have anywhere to go, and we've seen that pretty much all night long. And I don't think you can really be that cautious in the future race when we eventually get to that point. But I think especially right now for the rest of this race, there's no point in throwing away the position that you already have, as Kuhn here is going to come and grab the white flag, and we're almost done setting the field for a feature race here this evening.
Yep, 2 laps from now, we'll have an idea of what the grid's going to look like here at the Formula Ford Festival. Brought to you by the Major Series Formula Ford Festival. Brought to you on Grid Vision, filmed in glorious Grid Vision. There we go.
Not to be confused with Smell-O-Vision, not the same thing.
Not to be confused at all. Grid Vision, far superior, in my opinion, to Smell-O-Vision. And while we're at it, special thanks to Andrew Cardinal IV of Whiplash Sim Cams for providing the cams we use on our broadcasts. Except we're not using them this time, but he uses them sometimes. They don't tell me these things. I
tell you about Grid Vision 3D. I'm sorry, continue.
I'm shooting from the hip here. I'm just from what I try to do is a good job until I get told that I'm doing the wrong job. That's
right.
That's just how we do it. As long as you say, yeah, it's true. As long as you sound official, no one will really question you except for Austin Derbyshire. He will always question you.
Well, speaking of official, which these results are unofficial, but the 19 car of Kuhn crosses the line for our final heat race here. He'll win the final heat race, and the top 8 will transfer to Trozen, Cotley, McGreevy, Vickery, McPherson, Kukas, and Paulson are going to be the rest of the drivers. They're going to transfer. Heartbreaking for Wade, though, I will say that, Joe. He had a really good race going, and really no fault of his own. He's going to be going home this evening, unfortunately, though.
That was very heartbreaking. Now I think we've got, we're switching sessions, I believe. I want to make sure that we're looking at the right thing here. This looks like a feature.
We are gridding, though. I mean, why not? We'll do it live.
All right. Gridding up for the feature. We've got 34 cars on the field. Not going to call out all 34, but I'll give you the top 10. How about that? Travis Warling, Ross Bannifield, Christian Challoner, Trevor Vevrosky, Seb Tixier, Dan Stevens, Dallas Pataska, Stephen Verweyen, Adam Johnson, and Justin Morton are your top 10 right now. Here at 14 laps of Brands Hatch, this is the feature. The green flag is out, and we are go. Everybody getting sorted, all the spray starting off, and Travis Warling taking advantage of pole position to set a lead and set the pace. Down on the inside goes Christian Challoner, who wants that second place spot. He's going to take it as best he possibly can. Holding on to it, way to the outside. There's contact behind him, though. Trevor Vevrosky, Seb Tixier is able to avoid that contact.
One car off in the back. I'm not sure who that is. Off into the inside wall. Looks like possibly Morton in the 9. So the bad luck's going to continue for him. He's going to get back on the racetrack. Looks like he hit the right side of that car up against the wall. So he might have a little bit of damage, but still going for now.
Still holding on to it. Back up at the front. Warling is holding off Christian Challoner. Challoner trying to find the outside, being very aggressive right now. A few of the cars on this top part of the grid are already looking to make moves and get advantageous positions. Challoner now challenging for first place. He's going to take the outside line going down into paddock, throwing it hard. He takes it. Is able to hold it down. Yep, comes back onto the track barely. He's getting a bit of the squeeze from Warling. Warling on the inside now as we go around this corner. I think this corner is called the Druids' turn, something like that.
You are correct. It is the Druids' corner. I had forgotten that until you said it out loud. Oh, Warling's going to go wide here, though.
Curse of the Druids. Warling goes wide. He's able to hold it onto it. And he's going to try to put it back on the track and re-enter. Let's see if the boys let him do it. It looks like it's going to be tough.
Some mayhem at the back of the pack here. We got one car on its roof.
That looks like it involved Phil Otto, Jason McSparron, Brian P. McGreevy. A couple of names now. Damian Colby. Let's take a look at that accident.
I guess maybe on the roll bar they don't have roofs, but the car was upside down. That's the important part.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. We'll see here. That was a lot of carnage towards the back of the pack.
Right in the middle of the racetrack.
Not a good spot to be at all if you're a driver. And I don't think that was the one that led to all of our cars flipping. I think that was, but I do think that was. I think that was a knock-on effect of that earlier incident because that was the turn right after it, Joe. So I do think maybe trying to avoid it. And you see some other cars trying to avoid there as well, was a byproduct of that big incident we saw. And that corner's been tough for people. It's a downhill corner coming out of Druids. It's been very wet there, and it's one of the faster corners on the racetrack. So a hard place to get slowed down as we see another car, that's Gagaro Jr. having issues. They're able to get back on track.
Big slide on the inside, getting around Gagaro Jr. Up at the front, Christian Challoner had to hold off an incredible set of challengers who've been dogging him for this entire race so far. We've seen almost I've almost seen the front wreck about 2 or 3 times as we were going through these replays here, and Challoner now having to worry a little bit about lap cars ahead of him. It's a very tight race for the front. Any moment that we get one of these nice long stretches, you're going to see the challenge happening. Here we go. Trevor Vavroski trying his best to make the pass on Challoner.
Lap car definitely being a factor there too.
Absolutely. That lap car, who is that? I gotta remember who's driving that car. The hot dog
to be clear, lap car not doing anything wrong there, but just definitely all these drivers had to maneuver around fighting for position there.
Yep, that was Scott Kukas. Got to remember that. Challoner now. Vavroski down past Paddock. Vavroski's got the inside line. Challoner on the outside. Can't quite hold on to it. He's going to give him the squeeze back down. They're side by side for first place.
It's a
Challoner
really
holds
tough
on.
spot to be in for Vavroski there.
Yeah, very, very difficult into the straight. There's going to be enough power here to maybe cause some trouble. There's a bit of a chicane. Comes around into a long left turn. And
Really
it looks
interesting
like
complex
Vavroski's
too. Yeah, it's a really
is.
interesting complex because that sweeper sets you up for this really fast straightaway, and you can see that Vavroski was able to get it done, but Challoner is going to have a run again to the inside. We've seen this be problematic before, but Challenger's made it stick
Vavroski
before.
around.
Yeah, had to get on the brakes there harder. Oh, going to take 2 cars with him.
Contact. Yep. That's a double contact from Vavroski. He got around, could not hold on to it in the paddock, just lost the weight, I think, on the car. He had a good line, but when he lost the weight on the car got out from under him.
Well, also there too with Challoner just taking the aggressive line to the inside. I think Vavroski had to get on the brakes a little bit more than he was expecting. And I think, yeah, right there you can see I don't think he's expecting that closing rate, and he just had to get on the brakes there. Unfortunately, it was a little bit of a green shell, if you will, to the Mario helmet of Banfield there. I got that reference in, so I'm pretty proud of myself for that. But yeah, a couple of cars, that's going to end their race for sure.
Unfortunate. Yeah, with this many guys on the track, you know you're going to have some traffic, and we've got, like we said, the best drivers in the race so far are up at the front, and they are challenging each other to set some amazing lap times. When you're side by side in the wet and you've got the dominant line, you're going to be the person you're going to get bullied. And the question is, can you hold your line even if you've got that potential of tire contact? It looks like Christian Challoner won that particular game of chicken.
Yeah, well, Challoner just did a really good job of being decisive with his moves. He didn't really make any, I would say, harsh contact or anything like that, but just did a really good job of cutting the nose off and then just really holding on to the rest of the positions there as he made his way back through the field. So just really good, aggressive, assertive driving there by Challoner. And it worked out for him. I really don't think he did anything wrong. I don't even think Pavrovsky did anything wrong. I just don't think he was expecting to close on Challoner as much as he did there heading into turn one. But you got to make those moves if you're going to win a race.
Absolutely. We are over halfway through the race right now. Challoner up at front. In second place, it's Seb Tixier, the fastest pod racer in the race. Right as I say his name, he spins around. Perfect 360. He's just demonstrating and showing off his amazing car handling skills. He loses 4 places, though. It's going to put him back in his starting place of 5th. Really impressive. You got to see this. Watch this. Right as I said his name, he knew it was time to do a spin.
An impressive dodge there too. I don't know what that was that would miss it to the right side, but that was something to see right there as well. That was quite a move there, an evasive maneuver. Yeah.
Pretty sure that was either Dallas Pataska or Dan Stevens on the outside there making a move. Seb back in 5th place. Really unfortunate. That was a guy who I had pegged to maybe win this race just based on the speed of his name alone. And it's good to see that he's made his way up into 5th. Looking back at some of the battles going on here, it looks like Adam Johnson is putting the squeeze. Eyes on the transfer spot, though. Bit of a car off situation.
A couple cars off, it looks like here. I'm not entirely sure what happened.
Yeah, that's Scott Kukas going off on track. Damian Cotley going off on track.
Well, I saw
Kukas
had an issue at first, that he was the first car off track, and then when it went back, there was 2 other cars, but I'm not really sure what led to that.
Yeah, Kukas has it parked right now. He's just jumped back to the pits. Looks like they might have been separate incidents there.
Yeah, and I think maybe that spin there was just seeing the cars in front there and just checking up and then leading the spin there. Let's see here if there's any Oh, yeah, that'll do it. A little wheel to wheel. What did I say earlier? You can't high-five the tires.
Yep, you can't quite do it.
I mean, you can, but then that will happen.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's going to shake up the mid-pack a little bit.
Well, that might be fun. It's nice to have a bit of a shake-up mid-race, especially on a 34-car race. Gotcha. So it looks like the final transfer spot is the 18th place right now. That's Brian Scrivener. Everyone else is chasing, trying to get up above that 18 line. Scrivener driving the Crayola 70. Let's see who's behind him and who's got the best chance at catching up. About a second and a half behind him, that's Ryan Steele. Steele getting dogged now by Brett Trozen. Trozen throws it, makes it on the inside. Steele falls back. Oh, that was not Trozen. I was reading somebody else. I'm sorry. I think that was Travis Warling, was it? Yeah.
I believe you are correct. Sorry, I was reading this format here, like, and you remember that meme where it's like the lady looking confused and it's all the math? That was me for about a good 5 minutes until I figured it out. So what's going on right now, just to recap really quick for those of you watching at home. 34 cars here, 14 laps, 18 will go on to the final, and then everybody else will go on to the LCQ. So you're watching your top 18 right now. Those are the important cars. Well, everybody's important. I shouldn't say that. But those are your important cars as far as moving on to the feature race.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification there. I just got the same thing, and I was trying to parse it down.
I had to like draw. I'm not even kidding. I can send you a picture. I have a piece of paper here where I like wrote it out myself to figure it out. So Yeah.
That's okay. Let's just keep eyes on how things are going for the boys on the track. While we figure things out, they've already got it figured out. And some of the guys who have taken advantage of that bubble, Shane Vickery, he's up 17 places. Brenton Foster, he's up 15 places. So these are guys who have jumped far across that line, whereas William Fletcher, he's clawing his way forward, but he's still down 3 places. If he loses a place to Ryan Steele, he'll be on the bubble line, and Steele will be looking better than ever. Fletcher,
Steely.
if you're looking steely, that's what we like to see. Ryan Steele right now getting trailed by McSperrin. Yes, that's correct. Jason McSperrin. McSperrin himself is about a lap down on everybody here, so unfortunately this is not for position. But he's still going to be putting the heat on Ryan Steele.
Still 2 laps to go here. Going to be about probably 1 lap to go by the time I get done with this point that I'm trying to make here. But if you're one of these drivers, we kind of made a mention to how many spots that some of them have gained. This is, especially with as many cars as we had out here in this race, the name of the game was especially survive. I was really interested to see what the visibility would be like for these drivers. And now that it's kind of spread out, we're getting the white flag now. It's not as bad, but there at the beginning, you really had to survive this opening half of this race to make it onto the feature.
Absolutely. Coming down now around through the final lap. Up at the front, Christian Challoner, bit loose, but he knows he doesn't have any peers in his rear view right now. He's going to be able to cross the line without too much worry.
I believe I'm going to make a brash assumption here. I think by winning this race, Challoner will be our pole sitter for the feature race as well.
That's a good way to look at it. In second place, it's going to be Dallas Pataska most likely. And then Seb Tixier has made his way back up to third from losing a few places to that perfect spin. I should stop saying his name, though, because when I say it, he spins his car. There goes the checkered flag, and it goes to Christian Challoner, who takes it on the semifinal race of tonight's Formula Ford Festival. So let's recap. Let's do a real quick recap of the top 18, the guys who have made it into the feature so far. Christian Challoner, Dallas Pataska, Seb Tixier, Adam Johnson, Dan Stevens, Brian Barnes, Sebastian Jackson, Brenton Foster, Ashley Cucci, Justin Morton. And then rounding this out, 11th, it's Shane Vickery, 12th, Wayne Hutchinson, Mark Santana, David Gargaro Jr., and 15th, Brian Scrivener, 16th, William Fletcher, 17th, Ryan Steele, and 18th, it's Brett Trozen. Everybody under that line, they're going to head into the last chance qualifier, I think, correct? They're going into the bottom split. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this splits it. So let's see here. Really professional. Well, I'm embarrassed to say this.
That's okay.
Well, because everything to this point will be in one heat racing. After the semifinals, will be a short break to grid the LCQ race. LCQ race is 8 laps with 25 drivers vying for 6 spots. So I believe that is what we are moving to next, Joe, is the drivers vying for those 6 remaining spots.
Very good.
So I just completely derailed us and then tried to attempt us to put us back on track there.
It's all right. I think that we've got the first and only planned break spot, though. Is that right? All right. Maybe this would be a good place to throw it to a commercial break. All right, folks, we're going to change sessions here during the break, so please don't go anywhere on Grid Vision. We'll bring you more from Brands Hatch real soon.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work, so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Evening, folks, and welcome back to Grid Vision with the Major Series 2024 Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch. I'm Joe LaCastro, joined in the booth by Ian Fisher, and we're getting caught up here on the second to the last race of the evening. And during the break, we were just getting our breath back from a lot of heat racing. We saw some pretty impressive moves overall, some dominating drivers that are going to be up against each other tonight. And let's call out some of that grid. It's a large grid with a quick start, so I'll do the first 12 or so here. Starting off in the pole, it's Nick Kuhn. Second, Robert Northway. Third, Bryce Roberts. Fourth, Scott Kukas. Fifth, Jake Fox. Sixth, Ross Banfield. Seventh, Joshua Mertz. Eighth, Timothy Klaus. Ninth, Jason McSparron. 10th, Greg McEnany. 11th, Scott Paulison. 12th, Brian P. McGreevy. Perfect timing. Here goes the green flag. And it looks like a bit of a rough start for Robert Northway, who was up there at the front for a second. He's getting passed up very quickly by Bryce Roberts on the outside. Roberts taking that position from him. Nick Kuhn also making his way up as Northway falls back even further. Kuhn on the outside is getting passed, though, by Ross Banfield. And it looks like everyone is just trying to slot in and find a position without getting too wrecked out here early on. It's been okay. Stephen Verwain is off track. John Wade as well. A couple cars just losing a little bit of grip there. Don Dolson has crashed.
Couple cars off in the back of the pack that have had some issues, it looked like. And it looks like there was a lot of confusion there off the start, Joe. We'll see what happened here with this incident coming out of Druids here. It looks like drivers already trying to avoid. You see the 46 get spun there, and then it's kind of an accordion effect from there. Drivers just trying to avoid and then kind of running out of room to avoid there.
Yeah, really tough spot to have to avoid a wreck, especially when you're in the wet, especially early on in the race when you're not really expecting, when you're kind of just hoping to get up to speed and you don't want to have to hit the brakes quite so soon. But it's going to happen, and we've seen it happen here at Brands Hatch. Anytime that weight transfer occurs when the cars are going up and down these elevations, there's been that propensity for a spin, and it looks like that was just one textbook example of it. Now, way out front, it's Ross Banfield taking the lead from Robert Northway, and that beginning, that dominating point is happening, but Northway is keeping competitive. And I want to see some of the top-level drivers here really duke it out over these 8 laps of this heat.
8 more laps here to try to find a spot in our feature race, and you see more issues with drivers having problems. 34 off there, and then the 115 will take that spot away. But all the stuff I said earlier in the heat races about, trying to take it easy and being conservative just kind of has to go out the window at this point. It's 8 laps for 6 spots, and there's 24 drivers out here, Joe. So you can see this battle that we have kind of after the first couple of drivers. This is all for that last transfer spot.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of movement going on. Timothy Klaus now getting ganged up on a little bit. A lot of traffic down around the 6th and 7th position. You can see here drivers neck and neck, side by side as we go through. Klaus getting pushed in a little bit by Mertz. A little bit. Go back a little further. Excuse me. Klaus getting pushed in by McGreevy. And then also back there, that's Trevor Vavrovsky. He was one of the guys who was driving very much toward the front. He's just a little bit spun. Some of that air potentially making it hard for him to drive. A lot of spray coming off these cars. Tons of aerodynamic interference, I'm sure. We've got multiple cars all together like this.
Not only aerodynamics, but when you're just in there like that, the spray, too, coming off these cars makes it really hard to see.
Absolutely. These are open wheel cars. These guys have got to keep their visors clear. You ever raced in VR in these conditions?
Oh, no, VR makes me sick.
It's the only way I race in iRacing. And I got to tell you, iRacing in VR in the wet with just an open cockpit like this, oh, it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I can only imagine, and it would be terrible to not have a tear-off button mapped at that point too, I feel like.
Well, here we've got the leaders of our race now coming down across the line, getting ready to go down into that wide, fast right. For a second, my brain forgot the name of that hill. I will recall it.
Now
Paddock,
that you say
there
it
we
too.
go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Paddock Hill Bend. Oh, a little bit of contact there for about 5th position. And I was just going to point out, like, the top 3 podium positions, pretty casual for these guys so far, but really it's been a fight from about 4th on back.
Yeah, this is where a lot of the competitiveness and the hard driving we've seen from the heat races. These guys are finally meeting in the pack again for the first time, sometimes for the second time. A little bit of a pass now as Trevor Vavrosky goes in for 4th place, going around Joshua Mertz. It is busy back here. That is true. 2 wide now. That's the 80 machine of Timothy Klaus. He loses it just a little bit. Travis Warling going around him on the outside. Also looking on the outside is Gavin Barber, but Barber's not going to have the speed right now. Klaus holding on to 8th position the best he possibly can. 26 of these guys are going to make it through. So the line to be above is actually
8,
pretty
and there's
big.
26 in the race, I think is what you were going for there.
Oh, I'm reading that backwards. Yep, 8 are
Yep.
going to make it. 26 are in the race. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I did the same thing, so don't feel bad about that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. Yep, got a little bit turned around, but now I've got you to set me back the right direction. Off track a little bit there.
Speaking
That
of getting
looks-
turned around.
Yeah, speaking of getting turned around, that's the Crayola car.
Well, that really doesn't narrow it down tonight, Joe, honestly.
Well, I thought yeah, that's true. I think we have more than one Crayola color scheme out there tonight.
Very popular in the Formula Ford, I will say that. When you go into official races, the Crayola and the pencil one are both very popular. I will say an eclectic mix of paints we've seen tonight. I can see there's some team paints out there as well as we see a move down the front straightaway here in the turn 1 again. We've seen that all night long. Will it stick this time? It will.
It's Travis Warling. Travis Warling has been driving very aggressively. He is 15 places up right now from where he's been, diving it down, holding down a spot on the inside now, coming back down. Decent exit, good speed. Warling has something to prove right now. He's really been driving hard. We saw him drive hard during his heat race. He's driving it hard now. And I think that if anybody has a chance of trying to close on that podium, it's going to be him right now.
It really
Ooh,
has the
contact.
pace for it. Oh man, 2 cars going for the same spot there, and I gotta give Warling some credit. He's been involved in a lot of these incidents, as we see the later take the white flag right now. He has been involved in a lot of these incidents, but in his defense, it's been a lot of situations where it's 2 cars going for the same space, and really he's just the one that's not lifting.
Yeah, and that was a bump and run that was not going to look really great from the race point of view. So we'll see if that ends up with a penalty for him later on. He's above the line to make it in. So coming across the line, getting ready to see who's going to make it. The top 8 are going to make it out of this and automatically into the final feature, into the top split, I believe, of the final of the feature race, right?
I believe
Let's
so, and I
see.
think the rest go to the second split from there.
Very good. Let's see who makes it. It's going to be Ross Banfield taking the checkered flag, followed by Robert Northway in second, Trevor Vavrosky in third, Nick Kuhn coming across the line now, I believe. Ooh, close battle. Close battle. Let's just see what order they're going to make it across the line in. All right. It's going to be Nick Kuhn, then Travis Warling, Brian P. McGreevy, Jason McSparron, and Timothy Klaus as your top 8.
Warling wasn't able to make it all the way up to the podium, but a good drive to get himself into the 5th position.
Still 16 positions in 8 laps.
Yeah, I think that was that our biggest, our largest gainer of the that race.
Tied with Vavrosky, who also
Okay.
did 16 positions over 8 laps.
It's pretty impressive.
Very, very impressive work there.
So just to recap here, I believe the top 8 drivers from here will move on to the first split. So I think that's the rest. We'll see them for the evening, the top 8 drivers there. But I think the rest of these drivers will go into our second split of the evening. And I think that's 20 laps after a short warm-up that we'll get to see here, Joe.
Very good. So stick around, folks. We're going to go ahead and take a little bit of a break here on Grid Vision. We'll be right back after these commercials.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work, so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Welcome back to Brands Hatch, folks. I'm Joe LaCastro, and during the break, things were getting set up for our feature race. Looks like we're going to be gridding very soon here. And we'll get things kicked off. The conditions haven't changed much here at Brands Hatch. It's still very wet, very slippery. And it's the drivers who know how to drive that line that have taken the most advantage of it. We've seen up at the front some pretty intense driving.
And it looks like the rain has actually come back a little bit for this final feature race here. 20 laps to decide who is going to be the winner of this second split race. This isn't the top split. This is the second split race here that we are watching this evening. But yeah, I do think the rain is definitely going to be a factor. And I think it's raining harder. I'm just looking out the window, right, and seeing it. It looks like it's raining harder than it was earlier in our LCQs, and we're off.
And we're off in first. Looks like Timothy Klaus is jumping to the front there. Wow, what a huge leap from Joseph Homan. Homan and Klaus battling it out too wide around the first turn, down Paddock. Still too wide. Dangerous place to be on wet. Through Druids. Wow, and we don't have any cars off track yet. I say that. As soon as I say that, I bet we're going to see one. But the guys here have driven through several laps of wet tonight. All of them have had some experience on this track. What a save! What a save! And it looks like they are not giving up the race anytime soon. Even with so many people on the track, you just kind of wait to see if an incident is your moment to jump several places at once. But right now, everyone is keeping it surprisingly very clean. Defense mode.
Yeah, and I think you've had enough times through this track going through the heats and the LCQ where you're in the feature race now. You also got 20 laps, right? So you've got some time to kind of settle into a groove here and then make up some of your positions, over pace, and wait for the people in front of you to make mistakes. But I just think with all these drivers seeing these corners so many times, especially in the tough conditions that we have, I think everybody's just kind of had a few reps now and it's easier.
Yeah, those reps around have really trained their sensibilities in terms of how to get through this without completely losing the car, and maybe how to challenge for a few places here and there as they go. Klaus, now in second place, is trying to hold off James McSparren. McSparren, we've seen, aggressive push. He loses a little bit of control down to the inside, causes Verwayen behind him to spin just a little bit as well. McSparren has been driving very aggressively, and it hasn't necessarily been paying off for him most of the night. Let's see if he can make that work for him tonight as he takes the outside line wide, going flat out across the line here, leading up into Paddock. He's going to have a lot of speed to burn off, and he's not going to have the ideal line to do it. Let's see what happens.
Oh, man, that's really tight going into turn one. Great job by all three of those drivers to make it through there. A little bit of a drop tire there for the 22, but they're going to make it through it okay. And we've seen that all night long where the one driver in front will make a little bit of a mistake and it kind of creates an accordion effect all the way back for the drivers following them if you're really following close and racing aggressively. So almost in these conditions, as we see another driver off track there, able to hang on to it, they're going to lock it down, let the field go by, and then find another spot to rejoin there as almost another car gets into them as they rejoin. But we've kind of seen that happen when these drivers are racing close for position, Joe. It ends up almost being detrimental because somebody will make a mistake and then you have nowhere to go, especially with the slippery conditions.
Absolutely. And now we've got cars up at the front that are making things a little bit tight for Joseph Homan. Verwayen in his rearview mirror, clearly down Paddock now. He's got just enough speed that he might be able to catch up. There's the catch-up moment, but is it going to be too much? Maybe not. As Homan loses a little bit of the back end, it's going to cost him a few miles an hour, and that's going to get Verwayen in a position for him to hold on to that second place position and be challenging for first. Now, looking for it, he's going to take it the inside. Does he have it?
We've seen this chicane be a little bit of a problem before. It looks like both of the drivers are going to give each other enough space through there, and we kind of saw where they took that outside line going into Druid's corner. That allowed them to get the run there, but it's really hard. You got to pick your spots, especially in this racetrack. A lot of the left and right turns, not really dominant one way or the other, and you got to make your moves stick, and you got to be smart when you're making your moves here. So you see a move to the inside here. You got to be really smart with your braking. Don't let the car get out from underneath you. But now by taking that inside line, you almost leave yourself here for a move going in the Druids, because look at the run that they get back.
Yeah, he really got that run back. He had the inside line, which was the dry line coming down Paddock, but then that was just not, that was enough that, you kind of thought Homan might have been able to make more use of that speed, but you could see it coiled up inside of his car, just ready to use. Homan, though, unwilling to kind of let that uncoil a little bit, and it looks like it gave Verwayen just what he needed to maintain that first place position out of Paddock through Druids and then into this area where he's going to be able to put some more distance on the car behind him.
Yeah, not only that, but once you get the run, it comes down to, especially in these conditions, you're not really going to change once you're under braking. So you got to have the run and you got to choose the right line. I think he was maybe expecting Verwayen to go to that outside line that he tried before, so he went to the inside. Verwayen was already there, so he really had to check up, kind of killed all that momentum that he got from the run.
Absolutely. Verwayen now coming back up and around, through Druids now. I'm trying to learn the names of these bends a little bit. Down after that, you've got Graham Hill Bend, which is this here, into Cooper Strait. These are some great names, very classic British racing sounding names.
Maybe a
If
little
I
bit
was
of
gonna
a,
put that
a
right.
bobble here for Verwayen.
Let's see what happens. Oof, that's not good.
I set him back a few spots for, well, I say that, and looks like he's still holding on to the lead right now. Maybe just not enough of a bobble, or potentially Holman just had a mistake at the same time. You see there's that gap of about 6 seconds back to third place. So really it's Verwayen and Holman right now for the top 2 spots. And then a pretty hefty battle here from about third on to, I would say, about
Yeah.
7th for the final podium spot.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Greg McEnany in 4th in one of the Crayola cars here, holding off the pack of angry Hornets behind him, led by Gavin Barber. Barber just aggressively shooting, trying to see if he's got the line coming up here. He doesn't quite, but it looks like he's maybe going to take it to the outside. Doesn't quite have the speed again. McEnany just able to hold on to the position, that 4th place spot. He's up 7 now from where he originally started. Such a pack behind him, as McEnany is actually looking at Phil Otto potentially to make a position to pass him for 3rd place.
Really got a great run here, and we talked about that earlier when making the moves. We see the 58 getting back on track there. It's so hard when you have these many cars around you, Joe, because everybody's picking their line before you get into the corner. So you might get into a position where you're following 2 cars in front of you, and the only spot that you have to go is the least preferred line. So we're probably going to see a lot of changes for position here as this battle goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an ugly situation forming right now behind Stuart Elder. Jake Fox and Bryce Roberts are side by side. Bryce Roberts falling back a little bit now beside John Wade. Everybody's scrunching up again. These cars are neck and neck. No one really has the ability to make the pass. A few off tracks happening here. Looks like Steve Paulison was able to hold on to it. Now way off track goes Bryce Roberts into the grass on the outside. That's going to cost him several places as he falls back down to 10th. Still in it, though, and still on the track is just about everybody ahead of him, who has started to snake out into a bit of a less aggressive bunch of cars, as we've seen. They're still very close to each other, still within just a few tenths. Joshua Mertz potentially with a off track there. Let's have a quick look back and see what happened there. We got Joshua Mertz and Ronald McPherson maybe together, but let's see what happened to Mertz a second ago. Mertz drives it, overdrives it, oversteers, and he's off. Single car situation. Also, speaking of single car situations, Timothy Klaus off the track, barely avoids smashing the machine into the wall. He's back on. Everybody's got a little bit of the jitters going on right now, with the exception of maybe the guy up front, Steve Verwayen.
Well, we're getting to the
Verwayen and Joseph Homan.
Yeah, and we're getting to the point too where this has been the longest run that we've nearly had. We've had heat races of 12 laps, but you also didn't have as many cars on the track as you did before. So a lot more mentally taxing for these drivers, especially if you're in this pack. We kind of touched about the visibility with the spray coming off of the wheels, the difficulty in choosing lines and where you're going to go with your race car. And sometimes you're going to get forced into a position that maybe you haven't practiced that line yet, so you got to adjust on the fly. And I will say that's part of the fun of being a driver, as we see 2 cars going side by side in the Druids here. It's tough. Like, if you get forced to that outside line and you never work on that outside line, now you're in a position where you're coming back down here into the kink and you see a car go wide. It may be as simple as just not being used to that side of the racetrack with somebody else there.
Absolutely. And I think, speaking of going wide, I think that was Gavin Barber who just flew off the track a little bit. He's back on the track. Ronald McPherson made a pass here on P16. As we are crossing lap 11 of 20, plenty of action, keeping things going here on the track at Brands Hatch. It's a slip and slide, but it's an exciting one. One of those perfectly made ones where there's no rocks or twigs underneath the slip and slide, and you know you can just go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But in this case, this one turns left and right, and that's what's making it a lot more difficult for our drivers today. However, up at the front, Stephen Verwayen is making it look pretty easy, and Joseph Homan's making it look pretty easy. Behind him, though, as soon as you get to Phil Otto, it's a madhouse.
Yeah, really, it's just been a hornet's nest from there on to about 7th place now. A little bit of a gap going back to 8th place with McSparren there. But just back and forth we've seen kind of in this mid-pack, this early mid-pack group we
spin.
have here, as we see one car going back there. Looks like a couple cars maybe having troubles coming from the final sweeper.
Yep, Jake Fox and John Wade both had lost control of their vehicles there for a second. And as we get things back on the road here, we're going to get a quick replay. Here he goes, bringing it around to the left, corrects right. Hits the brakes. Yep, I'm betting he hit the brakes there. And that sends him around.
We've seen that happen a lot. We saw it happen earlier with Mertz, where it just barely tapping the inside of that curb, or actually going through the part of the racetrack right now that you see on your screen, and then just catching the water on the other side. It's a lot of the times not the first hit, but recovering from the first hit that really upsets the car.
Absolutely. And with Verwain out front, 5.5 seconds away from Holman himself, who is another 10 seconds away from Piatto. It looks like this might be a good time to quickly talk about tonight's sponsor, Majors Garage. You can unlock your racing potential with Majors Garage. You ready to take your iRacing experience to the next level? Well, look no further than Majors Garage, your ultimate destination for top-notch iRacing setups and expert coaching. Why Majors Garage? Well, they got proven success, trusted by racers of all levels, precision setups, fine-tuned for optimal performance, personalized coaching with one-on-one guidance to boost those skills, and community support. You can join a passionate community of fellow racers. For a limited time, you can rev up that racing journey. Take advantage of their exclusive promotions and discounts that are available, and don't miss out. Visit majorsgarage.com, right now. Drive with confidence, race with Majors Garage. Speaking of confidence, Jake Fox spins his car right when I say drive with confidence. How do you like that for an ad read?
That's good. I think you timed it just perfectly for that to happen, so that's impressive on your part.
All about the professionalism with me, Ian. I just want you to know that was planned, a planned spin by Jake Fox. He told me he was going to do it at that exact moment.
I will be sure to nominate you for a. Is it a simi? Is it a simi? Is it the
A
simi?
simmy. Yes, yeah. we can call them the simmies when we make them up.
Well, never mind. That's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down to right now. With 14 laps gone by in this race, with 6 laps to go, if my elementary school math checks out.
The math checks out, and we'll talk later. Seems like we're going to have an interesting conversation. Up at the front, we've got Stephen Verwain, who has been absolutely dominating it. But that pack of Hornets that we've been talking about has finally cooled off a little bit, as a lot of spinning and turning has been going on in the middle of the pack. That little pack of Angry Bees that we've had, yeah, they're non-really existent anymore. Everyone is spread out now across the racetrack. Stephen Verwain especially is looking to a few cars past some of the lapped cars now. Jonathan Mertz is the first car who's back a full lap, so he's got to watch out. Ooh, off track a little bit there. That's
Verwain. That's the leader.
Kukas and Verwain. Ronald McPherson, we just had eyes on there, I think, for a second. Verwain still out in the lead. Ooh, and then off track, that's McSparran. And right now we're looking at McPherson. I gotta follow up with Ronald and Jason. I gotta keep up with the names in the race tonight again. I know I've been calling them all night, but I'm still getting them mixed up.
Well, I read 143, right? So that's why I said Verwain. But I've been wrong before. So
That's fair. Well, 5 laps left in this second split at Brands Hatch in the wet, outside of Kent, England. It's been the most inhospitable day for racing weather, but our drivers have made the most of it here on the Majors League, on the Major Series. Stephen Verwain up front, Joseph Holman in second place, Stuart Elder right now holding on to third, but Gavin Barber is relatively close behind there, only about a second and change. Still something that can be made up with 5 laps to go, especially depending on how lap traffic is affecting Stephen Verwain or might be affecting any of the other drivers.
Saw in that onboard shot there a little bit of the tire lockup and some of the things that these drivers have been dealing with these conditions. It's just been so hard that it's not really necessarily the rain itself, right? I mean, you can kind of adjust to certain things as a driver. What's really difficult to adjust to, though, is the changing conditions that we've seen. We've seen the rain stop. We've seen it get harder. And really that's what they've been dealing with. So as that happens, the track progresses as well, and you just got to keep making adjustments to your lines here. And you can see a little bit of a shower line in the turn one here, and really just trying to avoid those two huge puddles you see on either side of the racetrack.
Joseph Homan just crashed, and he just cut off the nose of Scott Kukas, who also almost crashed here. If we can go back a second and see what happened to Joseph Homan when he ran off the track there. He was in second place for a second. Now he's fallen back to fourth. Verwaayen's still up in first. That was a very close call. Kukas almost getting destroyed as Homan makes his way back onto the track. We're going to go back now and get a quick look at that as we got about 3 laps to go. There goes just a big spin.
Yeah, just trying to get back on the gas there after coming out of Paddock Hill Bend and the compression zone that we've already talked about a few times tonight, and looks like it just claimed another victim before the night's over.
Best he can. 3 laps to go. Verwaayen in the lead, Elder behind him, Gavin Barber behind him. The 3 top cars right now are all in the double digits in terms of hard charging. They're all up at least 10 places. Oh, looks like we got a little bit of a right situation. That was Wayne Mertz, excuse me.
Yeah,
definitely definitely frustrated. You can see that frustrating situation to find yourself. With 2 laps to go at Brands Hatch, things look kind of locked up. If I was Stephen Verwaayen, he's been a nice clean line. He hasn't really had anybody challenging him. 20 seconds back, it's Stuart Elder. And Stewart's got Kevin Barber in his rearview mirror, but with 2 laps to go, it's going to be a tough break for Barber unless Stewart makes some very serious mistakes here. So let's keep an eye on that situation. That's about as close as it's going to get for a battle for third, or a battle for second, excuse me. Back in 4th place, Joseph Homan holding on to his situation. He was in 2nd place, fell back unfortunately a little ways. And with the white flag out, here comes the Grid Vision white flag. Verwaayen starts the final lap of what's been a very good night of racing.
Really just got to be smart if you're Verwaayen at this point, 20-second lead. I mean, no reason to really risk anything, and you don't have any cars in front of you or behind you. Just coast all the way back to the checkered flag.
I call this state of mind the Sunday drive.
Yes.
When it comes to you don't get a chance to be here very often, but when you can, you just take your car for a Sunday drive, and you know that you might lose a second. That's okay. You've got 20. But you gotta find that line that feels most comfortable to you. Not the most aggressive, just the most comfortable. And in perfect comfort, Stephen Verwaayen crosses the line and takes the checkered flag.
Really just
what a
too
fantastic
easy
performance.
Too easy almost, you know. I mean, you know, if you got to be happy about the win, but if you're Verwaayen at that point, you're almost like, man, I kind of wish I was in, you know, the main feature race at that point, you know, and let me show those guys what I got after I just smoked the entire field here. But
it's almost like he took the advice that we gave the drivers at Bristol last night: stay ahead of everybody and you'll stay ahead of trouble. And Verwaayen was able to do just that. He stayed ahead of all the trouble being in the middle of the pack tonight. So he was able to stay ahead of what ended up being a few wrecks for a few people, but most of our drivers kept it on the track tonight. I don't think we lost anyone to a full wreck. We had a couple people pit here and there. We have 1 or 2 drivers a lap down, but it was a good race, a solid 20 laps out of our drivers tonight. And congratulations to Stephen Verwaayen for the win. Just an impressive run from a lot of these guys. Celebratory slam into the wall with the hot dog car of Scott Kukas. And everybody is finally ready to get in and out of the wet. We're going to send it to commercial before we get to the results here, folks. We'll be right back on Grid Vision. And we're back after a lovely, if a bit soaked and damp night at Brands Hatch. We're going to read off these results here nice and quick, folks. First place winning it this is the second split. Keep in mind the first place winner, Stephen Verwain. Second, Stuart Elder. Third, Gavin Barber. Fourth, Joseph Homan. Fifth, Phil Otto. Sixth, Jason McSparron. Seventh, Jake Fox. Eighth, Bryce Roberts. Ninth, Greg McEnany. And 10th, Don Dolson. You want to take it from here, Ian?
And in 11th place, Ronald McPherson. 12th place, Stephen Paulson. 13th, John Wade. 14th, Timothy Klaus. 15th, Scott Kukas, are probably our favorite livery, I would say, in the hot dog car tonight, Joe. 16th position, Joshua Mertz in the 73 machine. 17th, Damian Colney. And 18th, Ross Banfield.
Yeah, those are the names of the guys who we just saw go round and round for 20 laps. And I got to say, my reaction to that is I couldn't have done it. I don't think I would have made it 2 laps in this race personally. And the impressive driving that we saw put on tonight by the drivers of the major series was really entertaining. I've never really watched a full wet race before, this being one of the first ones I've ever called on the series, on the service as well. I've got to say I'm going to remember it. How about you, Ian?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a cliche kind of thing, right? But I mean, I do hope all the drivers had fun, and I mean that, especially when you're coming out here and you're battling against the conditions, other drivers and the racetrack. I mean, it's hard. Driving in itself is hard to begin with, and then when you have that many things to deal with, it's even that much harder. So, I really do hope that people that even if they didn't make the first feature race or didn't finish as well as they hoped, if they at least finish the race, I think that's a win in the conditions like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations again to Stephen Verwain. We're going to go ahead and say our sayonaras, but first let's take a look at the schedule. Here's a little bit of what's coming up. Monday, next week, it's Kansas week. We've got Ryko on Monday. Tuesday, we've got Spartan Sim Racing League, also at Kansas Speedway. Thursday, it's Miami, High Slide Truck Series. And Friday, back to Kansas for more Ryko. Okay, folks, that's about it from the entire Grid Vision team. We'd like to thank you very much for watching and your participation tonight in the chat. If you participated, thank you very much. For more information on getting your league broadcasted or starting your career in broadcasting, hit us up on Facebook, X, or email us, info@gridvision.live. Thanks again. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time on The Grid.